Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Good morning, everyone. How's it going?
Good morning and a happy Tuesday to you, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Happy
Tommy.
Tuesday indeed, Seth. Hey, Mike, you look snazzy.
Well, we were traveling for work this week, so I got to kind of plan things a bit remotely. I grabbed some lights off of Amazon, and boom, look at that. Hotel room is now your studio. So,
They should hire you, Mike, as a how to flip a hotel room into a podcast studio in under $100 or something like that, or under whatever that is.
budget video editing here on this one.
There you
So
go.
we're trying to
There you go.
go easy. But hopefully you get at least decent audio and it still works okay for the podcast. So we're trying to keep things going while traveling and doing things for work. So anyways, quickly jumping into our topic for today. So our main topic for today is an article from like we do this like every other month, it seems like now. Another article from Kurt Bueller, just working through mass editing visuals inside Power BI reports. How does that work? What is the options here? What can we do to edit things in mass for our reports? With that being said, Tommy, any kind of news announcements that are coming out?
Pretty big one. So besides all the conferences and all the fun things happening, Microsoft Ignite coming out, FabCon, Tabl editor came out with their monthly update, and they actually came out with a really neat feature. There's some other great enhancements like setting value, filter behavior, but this new feature called code actions. And really what this is once you're in the expression editor, you basically right click. You can basically choose either improve, change the readability, or rewrite it.
Mm-hmm.
And these code actions are really kind of almost like macros, but just actually in parts of the DAX code or expression. They're incredibly easy. You can also use your keyboard shortcut, and you can actually create your own custom ones. There's some 29 customly built in, like simplifying switch, avoid the calculate shortcut syntax, but you can actually write your own or you can turn them on and off. So that's a really neat feature.
So is this more about like formatting the code when you're in the, like, so for example, the examples they're giving here are like you're in the DAX expression editor, manipulating things, and it's giving you sort of kind of like ease of use or common editing patterns that you do over and over again, right?
Right. For example, if you right click in the refactor, it's like, hey, remove all unused variables, or remove a table name, split a multi-column filter into multiple filters. So those are pretty darn neat.
Interesting.
This is definitely quality of life improvements, right?
Yes.
I mean, and while I can certainly appreciate it. I think we are spoiled if we're gonna look at how AI, some of the code editing assistants have improved performance of things. Like, this is a welcome thing to see, just in terms of like an assist, like helping you build better code. It's not AI driven, it doesn't seem to be, but in terms of like simplifying the code editing experience, you can wrap yourself around many axles in DAX, right? So it's like, hey, clean up my code, like take out all the stuff I don't need in my final set. That seems quite useful.
Well, for those of us who are writing like oodles and oodles of DAX, anything you can do to make it easier to write DAX, automate things, is like, that's a win for me.
Yeah, and I think they have a new Tabl editor has a new like kind of way to authenticate. So I don't know about you guys, but I do a lot with the premium service, like connecting to a semantic model. But a lot of times it's like, oh, I have to log in again. You have to go through the multi-factor auth on my computer. But now you can actually change some of those settings. So like basically, I believe like opening a browser. So if you're connecting to different workspaces, it still will remember you. So little things like that, because I really hate writing DAX measures. Writing DAX measures in Power BI now.
Now that you bring this up, I wonder if this is something around the area of, I think about what I do today in desktop, and now that we have DAX query view, there's a little bit of competition in the marketplace for like can we automate things in the DAX editing experience now? And it's kind of nice to seeing other tools kind of stepping up here and adding additional features here that are not included in desktop. So I think maybe there's something there, because in the desktop, you actually have a right-click action where you can script out multiple DAX things inside the editor window in DAX Query View, which I think that's good. It means there's some like pushing of people to make better UI experiences inside their tools. Awesome.
Speaking of added tools, there's another one that Microsoft launched on Fabric, on the Fabric update blog. There is AI skill. So Copilot and AI skill in the data warehouse announced.
Ooh.
Tommy should like this one.
That feels very similar to kind of like the Databricks experience, where there's the panel on the right hand side that, you know, and in code editor, right? So if your code's wrong, sometimes it's just a, you know, right click, enter, rerun with the new code, or explain it on the right hand side, regardless of the tool sets, right? Like this, it is probably the most used feature I use that accelerates code development for me.
But this is so, just to be clear, the experience here is code editing SQL with Copilot inside the data warehouse.
Inside Fabric. Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, the Copilot stuff does really well when there's code involved, and that I love where they put it there. I don't really dig the fact that I'm trying to push Copilot out to like build report pages and like other things, but like SQL, Python, notebooks, oh my gosh, it's so helpful to have it there.
I sometimes being the pessimist, especially on this show, is great. I don't know if I'm right, but I like being right. Can you imagine a world for a moment, right? Like ChatGPT, I think, opened the world's eyes to just how powerful AI and LLMs can be, right?
Yes.
But in terms of how we're getting the most value out of it right now, and this is also speaking from like a guy who reads a lot, knows a little bit about, you know, how we're building these AI mechanisms, but is not an expert. But if I look at it incrementally, the win to me should have been like, holy, like we are transforming developer experiences, right? We are accelerating this stuff so fast across all these ecosystems because you're leveraging the structured nature of how we develop code, right?
Yes.
You have the thing there already. But the minute you go from like these engines that have access to all data, right, which is how ChatGPT can be good. Although I did see an article, segue, parking lot. I did see an article about like whether or not that's going to remain to be valuable, and I'll tell you why in a second. But back to my point is, think about that. Launch AI into these like progressive steps into the org, as opposed to this broad stroke thing where like AI is going to solve all the problems in all the formats. And I think that's what companies are struggling with now, because as you've launched this out there, and we've tested a lot of that, regardless of what company is deploying it, yes, there are some kind of value adds, but it's not as significant, I think, as what we see in development realms.
Interesting. Another area, I was just recently talking with someone that I thought was very relevant here in this generative space. One area that is very in need of generative information is people writing like advertising agencies, because they're always looking for like, okay, here's the context of what I'm going to be talking about. I need 3 bullet points, or I need 3 catchy phrases. They're going to like write this. And I find that, well, and talking with them, they're training their team. They're sending their team to corporate to go learn how to best use AI skills from AI engines in their business. And I think I was like a little bit taken back. I was like, okay, I can see the value, but I was like, the bigger point for me was organizations are now saying, hey, AI is going to change how you do work. Your companies need to identify where is a good place for AI to be in place, and spend money on training your team how to do better AI to make themselves more productive. I mean, this is going to be a thing. You're going to go to AI training now.
Right. It's the tools too, right? Like AI is a tool, and I think the way it shapes things more so for, you know, like you're saying, like marketing, or it can generate, you know, images,
generative stuff.
generate videos. Like it's like humans are needed for the creative part of it,
Yes.
right? You'll always be.
Yes.
What is interesting for some of the LLMs, right? Like I was reading an article in LinkedIn, and I wish I remember who wrote it, but the hypothesis is, at what point in time do tools like ChatGPT or LLMs, and I don't know if this is true or not, but like it's an interesting thought exercise. If they're sourcing all of their answers and information from places where humans are solving these problems, right? Like Stack Overflow and like all the other communities, if people stop using those communities and only start using ChatGPT, then you don't get any of the new stuff in. And is that going to impact or affect the outputs of those LLMs? I thought it was just a very hilarious, like, cyclical thing if it true, came about to be.
It's funny you say
Go
that.
ahead,
I just started reading a book this weekend. Is by a guy who's like one of the maybe the smartest person on like prompt engineering, and I'll put the book name in there because I don't remember the book name, but he's talking about really kind of the history of LLMs and that big jump we went from. I think, remember how Microsoft they tried like 2 AI tools and they both were terrible back in the day. I'm not going to name the names kind of thing, but one was a Twitter bot that basically it did exactly what you did. The internet basically would tweet it and say,
it parroted back whatever it heard, basically.
Yep. Yeah. And it was done in 16 hours. And then they did something in Bing before Copilot. And someone from like Forbes or the New York Times realized that Bing was trying to hit on them, basically, so to speak. So because a lot of the content that LLMs have been getting is public domain, right? Yes. So it's like, how do you actually label? Yeah,
exactly. But it's like you look at, and why I think that idea has legs, right, is because if you look at the large language models that have access to everything, they're very informative. You can get some really good ideas and answers about a lot of things. But when you open those in smaller lockdown ecosystems like your company, because you don't want your company data to be out there, what do we find? What are we finding? Like they're not it's not a one text box, ask anything in your own internal AI and you automatically get the answer. Right. Yeah. So this is where we've had many discussions around, like, there's got to be foundations of data. There's got to be some structure to the data. Like, why are they so good in the code editors? Because there's bounds. There's code, like, you can only do certain things, right? Yeah. And if you're learning the bad patterns and recommending the good ones, or recommending like how the pattern of the code is being developed and the joins of the different columns, and you're just auto recommending the whole join and all this stuff, like, that makes a ton of sense versus not having any bounds, but your bounds are this very small box, right? And that's where, even on the larger scale, if we're not continually feeding the monster, right, like the engine with new things, at what point does it need to start creating the answers itself, right? Yeah. So I don't know.
This is I was talking with someone about that exact issue, and they said basically it came down to, there is the ability for people to need to build new packages, new code, new things, right? If those things are not being referenced as frequently, you're kind of gaining this knowledge around amassing old technology because it's been out, it's very common, it's very well documented. That's where things are getting trained on. So new things that are more efficient or different or implemented in a slightly different way, they're going to have to think about how to train. Again, this is all going to be an evolution of things. I think they're going to figure out what to do, and they're going to figure out, hey, this content's newer. Let's go recommend things from there more frequently than things that are older. There's got to be something there in the language models, but they're interesting, and I'm not sure we all know how to deal with them yet. It's kind of touch and go, I guess a bit.
How do we implement them the best, right?
Yes.
I think that's where we're at. I've seen a lot of success in the code area, and creative spaces. But it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, for sure.
But regardless, I'm very pleased that there is a Copilot showing up where I'm going to be writing SQL. At the end of the day, like, I'm okay at writing SQL. I can do most things. There's always weird things I miss. It's syntax. I mean, every time I forget the stupid group I when I'm trying to aggregate things. Every time. Like the AI should just figure out what needs to happen and be like, hey, I figured out there's this, and there's techniques in SQL I don't use. Like, who uses rollup? Like, I don't use it as often as I probably should, but there's other functions that might be more effective at doing things, and having an AI guidance helping you write those things out, it just makes things faster. Anyways, I'm a fan of it. I did not know that came out, and so I'm very pleased that that's coming through to the data warehouse. That'll be a lot of fun. Any other news items before we get into our main topic? I think we're just about at time. All right. With that, let's get into our main topic. So today's main topic will be the article from Kurt Buehler talking about fixed visuals, replacing fields, and mass format reports inside Power BI. Now, I want to make a note here. I think this is something that I identified when I was I tweeted in Fabric Conference in Europe. I made a huge statement, and I think I'm going to stand by my statement.
Uh-oh.
I was watching Michael Kowalski write notebooks and building a whole bunch of things in reports with semantic link labs, and I was thoroughly impressed with, like, oh my gosh, this tool does editing of the model. It can do report editing. It can do Vertipack extraction. It can then write DAX queries against the model. It can use all the Power BI APIs based on the context of the user. And I thought, holy smokes, this one tool, Semantic Link Labs, has the potential to make every other external tool obsolete. And I tweeted it. I threw it out there. I threw out a tweet. And lo and behold, tabular editor team, Daniel, came in and said, hey, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Like, there's still probably some use for like pro tooling. But the more I use Semantic Link Labs, I just did a workshop with for training.tips around Semantic Link Labs. It's phenomenal. Like, it does so many good things. And so I'm very pleased to see where this article is going to go and unpack this with you guys, because I really do think the next tool that people should really substantially start learning is Semantic Link Labs. I think it's going to be a game changer. I think it's going to help you out with a ton of automation. In talking with people, they're finding immense amount of values for this thing. So I'm very excited to see where we go with this article today. Anyway, just putting that out there, I'm going to stand by my word. I think this is a game changer. This is a major game changer for us building things in Power BI and Fabric, for that matter. It does more than just Power BI things, which is crazy cool.
We'll see if Tommy can keep you on topic with this one, because there's a lot to talk about with Semantic Link Labs.
But it does so much stuff.
Specifically today, it's a time saver, right? I think the article is more around time saving in viewing, copying, and modifying your Power BI reports with a lot of the different objects on all the pages, right? And I think Kurt brings us up as far as an intro is concerned with all of the tweaks. Like, right, you build a report, you go through, and then it's 6 pages long, and then somebody sees it and they're like, yeah, it's good, but can we make it like 12-point font? And can you make this color, this one? And it's the to-do list after you present it, right? That
yes.
Or as another one that doesn't happen as often, I think, is migrating from one version of something to the other. But there's a lot of tedious steps to do in there, especially if you've so incorrectly not used a theme in all of your stuff. Powered by, of course, the Power BI Tips theme generator. But let's assume for a moment that you haven't. This is, I think, one of a really amazing way to interact with and update that stuff. Albeit, caveat, unsupported. A lot of this is, right. We're okay with that. We use preview features all the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on you a little bit on that unsupported feature. Where we are today, there's a whole lot more supported than what was in the past. And I think maybe what I would put a caveat around this one is the underlying technology that's doing this for us is the fact that we now have the PBIR format, Power BI report format, which has totally changed how we store data about the report. That needed to happen for something like this to exist. Which is, I think, that's a really good point there.
I'm not suggesting that it doesn't work, but like Kurt even calls out, right? Writing back to the report.json of a Power BI file is technically still not supported.
Well, anything under the PBIR format is in preview, so it's like your mileage will vary. And I've been having bugs with, like, I've been making PBIRs in the old original format because the PBIR has kind of gone through an evolution. And there's some weird bug right now that I'm finding where if you go from an old PBIR format and try to open it again in a newer version of desktop says, hey, you're in the old version of a PBIR. Oh, really? We'd like to update you. And when you update it, it just breaks desktop. It says, I can't save the file. Your work is not saved. I can't save anything. It just freaks out. You literally have to close the file, start back up and say, don't upgrade the file. So there's they're still trying to figure out some kinks, and there's some bugs, I think, still there. I've kind of got an issue to Microsoft to kind of like let them know, like, hey, I'm finding some weird behavior. I'm not sure if it's just me making some bad stuff, which could totally be a thing, or something is actually wrong when they're trying to update these files. So we'll see. I mean, regardless, everything I see, though, is, I'm hoping in the next couple quarters or months, they're going to land on the PBIR format. It's going to come GA, general availability, and we're just going to go to town on this thing because this is the right way to go.
Yeah. So, Tommy, what areas do you want to focus on here?
Yeah, this is a big article.
Yeah, and I know that this is probably going to be a few part tiers because Kurt actually has 3 articles on Semantic Link Labs: report, data set, and then kind of all over. To me, this is absolutely crazy. And I want you to think about the use case or the practicality. As much as Semantic Link Labs, it's absolutely incredible. He's doing everything in a Jupyter notebook here to modify the report. First, you can actually view the report in a notebook. And there's actually, isn't there a Jupyter extension for Power BI where you can embed your own data? But this is actually looking at, I've actually used it this weekend. But we can actually launch a report in a Jupyter notebook, which is pretty crazy to be so not having to go anywhere. I don't know, guys. With Fabric, I have 8 tabs open of Fabric now. That's just how life is.
I think there's a guy, I talk to him like twice a week, and all he does is talk about notebooks. Who's that guy?
Who could that be? I don't know.
You guys know who I'm talking
about? I think I bring it up once a week.
But you're right. Like, notebooks are the way to interact with data. They just are. It's just better. And this is just like starts to pop your mind with just amazing capabilities of like how cool having all of these capabilities in these notebooks is. It just blows my mind. But floor open, Mike, why should everybody use notebooks?
Well, I mean,
learn them.
To be frankly honest, I mean, the notebooks are a crazy different experience than what you're used to developing with. Yeah. I mean, they're awesome. And I think Kurt's example here in the first part of the article is actually a really solid example. Like, you build. So one of the things I saw Michael Kowalski demo was, okay, let's imagine you have a semantic model, and that semantic model has many reports that are attached to it. One of the things you want to do is you want to update a measure name or delete a measure, and you need to know what is the impact of that measure. Semantic Link Labs has the capability of saying, here's the model, give me the list of reports, and it can evaluate the impact of that measure change on everything downstream. Now, I think Kurt misses I think that's a very strong use case, but Kurt doesn't really describe that one specifically. But in Kurt's initial example, he says, here, let me show you, or with a couple lines of code, pretty easy, let me render a report. Immediately you say, oh, look, a visual's broken because a field's wrong or something's not correct on the visual. And so immediately he's able to go look at the report and say, hey, this is a problem. There's a field that needs to be fixed. And it says there's something wrong with one of the fields, customer plan role table, the column called key account, whatever the thing is, right? So there's a message box that says there's a problem. And then he goes through in, what is this, like 6 lines of code? Not even. He doesn't even need to import Semantic Labs, but I mean, with only 3 lines of code, he's then able to spit out the PBIR format of the report. It goes to get the report JSON. So describing the entire report back to, like, this is crazy. and it's all in a notebook, and you can automate it. This is, again, I'm just floored by how good this experience is. So I really like Kurt's initial example here. I think it's really solid. What are your thoughts?
So I'm just wondering, I get the data part, and maybe I'm going to push back a little, at least with this article, because I get that from data management, data engineering. I've been doing a ton, actually, just working with a semantic model or just tables of data using, and it makes a ton of sense. But to go through your report and to try to go through the actual content of a report, wouldn't you want the user interface? Would you want the UI than the canvas? And give me a reason why I should never have the canvas again.
Well, I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer here is like, look, I'm thinking of this example that Kurt's doing is you're going through reports, like you have a lot of reports in your organization. Some stuff may be broken, some stuff maybe not, or maybe you're making a change to a semantic model that is a solid change. Like you're literally going to make the business requirements have adjusted. You're going to need to rename a measure. That will 100% break things downstream, no matter what. So this is a nice, easy, automated way to say, look, I have made one change in my semantic model. I've got 5 reports to look at. I can loop through every single report and just say, let me just say if it looks okay. Let me just look at it visually. And you can go through this. To me, this notebook in this example here, this is part of your QA process. Your QA team or whatever, if you look at the reports, are going to use this to kind of figure out what's going on. The neat part about this is that the notebook actually goes through and completes the fixing experience as well. But I mean, it's just hard to identify where are the problems. So this is, again, I really like this. And now that I have, to me, this brings it full circle, right? Make a change to a model, identify where the change breaks things, go look at the reports, verify that it's working again, see those changes. And then in the example here, he talks about fixing those changes. So he's fixing them, adjusting the data properties of that visual. And then you can push the changes back into the report, which is crazy cool. And I'm less worried about this. This is almost like this is editing the report in the service. So the report could potentially be different than what you have on, like, so for example, if so this is editing the report in the service. So this is like the equivalent of like, hey, I'm taking reports down in Stadium and SharePoint because that's how we store versions of our reports. This is not that. This is totally different. But I think now with Git integration on the workspace, if I'm making modifications on the reports, and to me, I think the linchpin for me is in order to edit reports in the service, I'm now comfortable with it because there's Git backing it. If there's something really going wrong, I can restore the old version of the report. I feel comfortable editing stuff inside PowerBI.com without worry of not being able to download the file again. Sorry, I said a lot of things there. I'm not sure this all made sense.
I think it did. It did.
Okay.
I think what's really interesting to me is as Semantic Link Labs starts to expand and show like how the community is, how you can leverage it. Your one of the most impactful things, I guess, to me is you're keeping everything or bringing it all into the same interface, which already is a huge time saver, right?
Yes.
To your point, if I'm in development, making changes, pushing those changes out from the same place and then validating and then fixing, right? Instead of how many browsers are open, right? Like, I wonder, which brings me to a random thought. We I think have grown to, the mega screens of computers. I wonder if that's going to start shrinking because now we can do more in smaller places. But like in today's world with Power BI, like I have tabs open all over the place.
Oh, same.
Like if you have an end-to-end flow going, there, like you're utilizing all of your screen real estate. 100% you are. So what's cool about this to me is just that has kind of struck me as I'm looking at Kurt's examples and walking through that interface is I can just pull it up, right? I have this one place and now I have hooks into other parts of my system that allow me to not just visualize, but also remediate. And then like, hey, where in the future, how far off are we from understanding which visuals are broken and automatically fixing them, right? Or, just doing prompt fix through, all the changes that were deployed.
Yes. This is where I think things, I think I'm a half glass full kind of person. You guys probably laugh at that just because, yeah, Mike's probably an optimistic in nature, but like, while it's not all built yet, I just see the potential of this feature or being able to use notebooks in this way, this fashion, just opens up a lot of doors. And a lot of so we built the business ops tool for Power BI. So business ops helps you manage external tools to your Power BI model. I think with these semantic link labs and particularly the notebooks being able to so easily manipulate and edit things against the service, I think some of these tools that we put into the business ops tool are a little bit meaningless now. You can read all the measures and format them all at once. You can edit reports now. Like there was tools that were being made that like kind of one-offs. To me, this is like a single place where I can do all those features in one spot. So I'm kind of excited to see where the community continues to automate around reports and what else can be built there. I think there's going to be with semantic link labs. I really feel like this is the starting point for like really true data ops, right? Yeah. Checking your data, confirming that it's right, making sure that it's correct in an automated way. So do a deployment, make your model, push it out to test, run a bunch of tests with semantic link. And I think this is where things get really exciting for me because I think that's going to really improve our quality and speed up what we do. I think that's a huge win.
And I just want to point this out. I want to give a big kudos right now, which I mean, we're at 369 episode. Have I ever done this before? Maybe.
This first time. This is a first time for everything.
Huge kudos. Not only I think to the community for sure, but also the decision makers at Microsoft to go down this path to open up the PBIX file and Power BI, because had that not happened, this would not be happening. We would not have this because it was 100%. Such a black box that you couldn't do much with and couldn't interact with. And because those decisions were made previously, we're at this amazing point where we're talking about Power BI in a notebook being edited and being able to push change. Like, just that is so cool to see. And I'm like, as you were talking and as we're like, talking about this, like I get those bubbly feelings. Like, oh man, love it when those things that are incremental and you don't see the impacts. This is one of those like impactful moments to me where it's like, dang, like this could be a fundamental change with how people and organizations interact with their reports.
So a big part of this though is the PBIR file, and I think I don't know if that's
that is the tech. Yeah, that's the tech. I mean, that's what I said earlier. Is like all this doesn't happen without the PBIR.
And I think this is a pretty big thing where everyone was so used to and happy with their PBIX file, and this one.
No, we weren't happy with it. It just was what we had to use.
It was what we had, right?
It was. I mean, I get it. It was kind of built one way. I mean, this is what happens though. You don't know what you don't know, right? There's a lot of tech debt. They had to like figure out what to do to make reports work, and so, do we build the PBIR format day one? Probably not. Like we just build something that works, and then it works, and then you come back and say, okay, how can we build it better? This is the optimization step of building reports. Like this is optimizing what they're doing, making it easier. In the PBIX, there's a bunch of stuff in there that they're not keeping in the PBIR format. It's way trimmed down. There's a lot of features and settings and properties that don't exist in the PBIR because they don't need it. They've figured out how to work around it. But that's removing a bunch of tech debt from that file format that is now not required because desktop and the service just knows how to work with it. So this is just them learning and doing a better job with what they've learned about. I'm super thrilled about this one. One thing I'll also note here, this is maybe a general observation on things, and this is maybe a feedback from Microsoft. Anytime you can build a tool or product that involves the community of passionate people to build solutions or find problems and fix those problems with tooling that enables the community to build something, right? Every feature that I think has gone kind of wild inside desktop, I'm thinking external tools. I'm thinking the XMLA endpoint opened up to external tools to allow them to edit stuff. Like when things get open sourced or lets the community involve, like here's some automation, we're going to give you access to the standards that Microsoft produces. that's the time when things get like really exciting. Like I get really excited about it. People build cool things. Some of them extremely useful. Some of them, maybe not so much, but it's interesting. But I mean, this to me, this is like the more you can think about how do we put community first in whatever we're building, I think that actually accelerates the usage of the product. And so maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe that's not the goal of Microsoft ultimately, and I'm just picking up on a couple key features that I like. But I think the takeaway for me here is whatever you're building, whatever application, tool, software, think about how your community can enhance it or give them. You build the standard of what it starts out as, but then figure out a way to like let the community invest their time and effort. And now the community is building stuff for free. Microsoft doesn't pay them to build more notebooks. And examples of this, they're just doing it because it's interesting. Anyways, that's just a general observation.
And it drives more usage. It's a benefit.
Right? Exactly.
So random question, right? Too early to tell. And but how far do you think this one potentially takes off in terms of kind of two parts? Does Semantic Link Labs and this interaction, like as it continues to evolve and grow, it become like one of the de facto ways that like the hardcore Power BI developer works, right? And or does it have the capability to stretch outside the bounds to the lay Power BI user or not?
Ooh, this is a good question. I didn't think this is where you were going with this question. I think in general, what I've observed around notebooks, there's a large hesitation from the Power BI. Let's just talk pure Power BI community, right? Pure Power BI. There's a large hesitation from the Power BI community. It's like, it's notebooks, it's Fabric, it's writing a lot of code.
It's very technical.
It's very technical.
Yep.
So I think there's an initial blush of hesitation. When I think about what has really worked well for people is when you have that DBA level person, the one who understands the data, the one who's writing SQL statements, the one who's writing store procedures, those type of individuals don't have that much of a gap to jump between what their knowledge skill is and then using notebooks. There's definitely a learning curve for sure. But I think the more I work with companies and the more I teach them about notebooks, it doesn't take long before, after a couple patterns, people just start getting it. Things start clicking on and they're like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. They're saving their code. They're finding, again, it's some of these things are like, I don't even know what to Google or search for to get the answers that I need, right? If you get Copilot down to these lower SKUs inside Fabric, and users can start asking Copilot, hey, how do I write a class statement in Python? It just shows up. Like, it just shows you, like, here's an example of one. Oh, right. That's interesting. And so, I mean, when that starts, when you start bringing that level of like assistance down to those new Power BI users, I think they love it. On the flip side of this, there's another user group that I think is the DBAs. They're already like very technical already. I don't think they're having any hesitation, honestly. I think they're just starting and moving forward with this one. So my opinion is, I think it's going to take some time. I think having good community support, building examples and documents and articles. But of the things I've seen recently, everyone is writing articles about notebooks these days. I mean, it feels like there's just nonstop content coming about notebooks and how great they are.
So you think this takes over the world? Tommy, what about you?
I don't, because as much as notebooks are awesome, and like I said, it's been an amazing learning curve for me, or kind of like a journey on there for the last 2.5 years, where it's something it's a go-to. Granted, there sometimes I'm like, it's easier in Power Query, but I digress. I think for the mass users, they're not going to start trying to learn Python, and maybe their organization has Copilot with the Jupyter notebooks already enabled. But I don't know about you, the Copilot notebook feature, it's like a help feature, but it's not necessarily like, here, we're going to LLM on that code that you have actually given. Honestly, if Microsoft can integrate away with like a VS Code or something very simple, where the Copilot and GitHub, which is probably the best kind of code assistant out there, where they're like, I want to connect to my data set. done, kind of write the code for you is going to be a good way, because there is a pretty steep intro compared to Power Query, where Power Query is easy to learn, compared to
The
I have to
UI,
know
the
notebook,
user interface is all right there. Right.
all
Yeah.
right there.
Mhm.
And compared to the different data types in Python, you have to now
Sure.
know, like, I kind of wish Power Query had packages, but all the different packages, where do I get help for those? So I think that, unless I know I'm going to be working in Jupyter Notebooks on a daily or weekly basis, a person's not going to just begin to pick that up.
Gotcha.
But this is my point, though. My point is, you're not going to naturally pick it up. But I'm telling you, like, from one who knows how to like look at stuff and who's learned some things, like, this is worth your time to learn. That's my point. My point is, like, you may not be like interested right away initially, but the sooner you just jump in and say this is worth learning, and you start spending effort, it will help you. It will make some things more easy, fluid, simple to work with. I'm gonna push you to like this. I'm gonna push people in this one. I'm like, the Power BI user. I'm with you, Tommy. They come from Power Query. They like all the buttons. It's easy to click. The transformation just happened. Great, works well. But right now, man, if I'm looking at things, the notebooks team is eating the Power Query team's lunch at this point. Like, the stuff that is coming out from the Spark and the notebook side is just way faster, cheaper to run, easier to work with, and features are coming out really quick in the space. Now, maybe Microsoft's playing a lot of catch up here, but like, dang, it's really cool. I mean, this is you got to learn it regardless.
I fall a little bit in between, and I think what's exciting to me about technologies like this, or features that allow us to scale and just continue to, are these are accelerators to workflow, right? And the more tools allow us to accelerate, the more adoption you're going to get, right? Because at some point in time, like, as opposed to where I think we've been, right? Like, specific tools allow you to accelerate on one path, right? But when you can add multiple things together, right? So now if I engage in understanding how this works, I have a 5x multiplier or a 10x multiplier. Like, now you gain the interest of a wider audience. So I think developers, for sure, like, long term, like, this is the route, right? And I think more and more will adopt and learn a lot of the frameworks and new things you have to get it all. I would say from the outer fringes of like engaging with the Power BI users, I'm kind of with Tommy. Not everybody's going to adopt. You're going to have a large swath of people that need the user interface. They're just like Excel, right? I want to control cell by cell. I want to see that my data in these things. That's how I understand it. My leap was into Power Query, where I can finally understand my steps. I can see them all. It makes sense because I don't have a technical background. However, I will say that tools like this allow the business user who wants to engage in those time-saving activities. The stretch is much less, I think, right? Like, because you open this door to creating business rock stars, where they're like, and I think this resonates with you, Mike, back in the day, because you're like, I'm an engineer, I'm lazy. Lazy meaning I want to automate all of my workflow, everything, right?
Yeah, as much as I can.
And where notebooks, I think, are this amazing tool is, like, you have Markdown. You can basically create tutorials of like how you go about doing something,
doing your work. Yes.
And from the technology side, from the developer side, I think it behooves you to almost say like, oh, okay, well, how many of these tutorials could we build that do these things, that do things for business, but also at the same time are training them how to use it, right? And I think that's the max value you get out of this experience, because it's not just, okay, go read all my SQL code, right? It's Markdown. Here's what we're doing. Here's the comment. That's the cell. This is what you load. If you want to like read the cell, go ahead, but I'm not breaking your flow from top to bottom or anything like that. So I think there are more opportunities to reach out into that, like to broaden the audience a bit because of that notebook experience. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna take them the time and effort more so than to kind of leap into a deeper pool than they have in the past.
Let me give you one other. Yeah, I love that point, Seth. And I want to come back to the article from Kurt, because I think there's a couple gems here at the end that we didn't talk about. At the very end of the report, just before his conclusion, he starts talking about some things. He goes through here and he goes, look, I'm going to fix the visual. Okay, cool, interesting. There's another section here. He goes, there's another whole section around it. And this is where I'm like, this is the game changer that we're waiting for. And this is the part, take note here. Creating reports from an existing report.json. So he's taking an old report or a report that he's already built, and he's using a new command, create report from report.json. In there, these are the only parameters you shove in. You shove in the report name, the data set name, the report JSON, the definition of the report in JSON format, which is what it can read out anyways, the theme JSON, and the workspace where you want to put it. One of the things that we have had issues with the CI/CD pipelines, deployment pipelines, there's been no high amounts of automation between, hey, I've got a report in test or dev, I've got to move it to test, and I've got to rebind that report to a new data set and a new thing. And so you think about all the deployment patterns that companies come up with. Like there could be a number of things. You could have 5, 6, 7 environments. You could take one report from a central workspace and deploy it to a lot of like child workspaces, because there's things for HR, and maybe you want to duplicate a report between two different workspaces just because it's the same report, 2 different audiences, like whatever. Like this part of the notebook, I mean, he literally, it's like 2 paragraphs at the end. I'm like, this is the more important part of the article here, in my opinion. This is the landing of the scenario. Like this provides CI, continuous integration, continuous deployment with reports, where you can start automating the movement of them and rebinding them back together again. The only reason this is possible is because we have API. This is what it's doing. It's not doing anything magical. It's using the Power BI Fabric APIs inside Semantic Link to go do automation. And to me, like, okay, yeah, cool. This is like interesting things, but like, this is underrated. Like this is amazing, and you're going to see, mark my words, you're going to see a lot more examples. I can't believe John Kursky has not jumped on this bandwagon. So calling John Kursky, if you're out there, please write me some more notebooks around automation and moving things between workspaces using only Semantic Link Labs. This is amazing. And I think what's happening here is, if I had to put my thinking hat on here, when Michael Kowalski was talking about Semantic Link Labs, he talked about it in a way of like, the labs is experimental stuff that Microsoft is trying to figure out what works. Of the things that work the best, those will get pushed back into Semantic Link. So labs is this experimental place where they're figuring out things that are like, it's the early version, it's the preview, it's like, let's see what the community builds. And then from that, they're saying, look, these are the features that are getting used the most. We're going to push them back into regular Semantic Link. And now
we'll take it all.
You'll have this ability of like doing all this full automation. Like it's incredible. So it just shocked me, like when I saw all this and I started having these revelations, I guess, of like, this is a real tool. Like this is something to take note of. Anyways, I'm just really excited about it. Shocker. Michael likes code. That being said, and notebooks are super awesome. Anyways, I just wanted to point out the very end, right before the conclusion, was like a gem that I think that you're going to need to learn. It's going to change how you do your workflows in the future. Any final thoughts? Tom, do you have any final thoughts wrapping this topic up for today?
I'm really excited to get more into semantic links, especially what you can do both from looking and modifying your tables, and even what you can do with your semantic models. And I think that's going to be a great use case. I've been saying this for a while, when we think about the data science aspect of this, and then extending the semantic model that already has everything predefined to keep that source of truth. So I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Do you really see a lot of customers asking me? I'm just be honest. People talk about data science and how this is going to help get data out of models and things like that. Do you see a lot of customers actually doing data science and using the needs to go after these semantic models? Are they asking for this yet? Or is this more of
So
like a nice to have feature and well, eventually we'll get there?
see, this is what I'm going to make the argument. They're not asking for semantic models because they don't know it, but they're asking for sources of truth. They're like, hey, I just want to. You guys are working on your data engineering data. We're working on this raw data, but there's no interconnection. They're not thinking I want a semantic model that already has everything predefined. It'd be great.
But my question is more about the data scientist, though. My question's around. I'm challenging you a bit on the.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
I don't hear the story of the data scientists are showing. Like, this is all BI, business intelligence, getting reports out the door to users in the business. I don't see a lot of data scientists yet showing up to like knocking at my door and being like, we have to use Fabric for data science at this point. It feels like it's a far off story, used probably in certain scenarios, but not where I'm seeing it heavily used yet at this point.
That's and like, oh, my friend, that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think right now data scientists are like, thank goodness there's semantic link labs. But I think there's going to be I think we're actually going to have a story here where the semantic model is going to be a endpoint or connection point for a lot of what data scientists do.
Got it. Okay. Seth, any final thoughts?
I'm excited about the direction here, and I would imagine we talk more about semantic link labs and the features that are coming out. These to me are like a growing number of use cases that as the community continues to show them, right, and show others what you can leverage with this tool, these are big time saver kind of articles and tools, and those get me excited. So looking forward to where it heads. Thank you, Kurt, for the article. So always a great one, and good topic.
Good talking points. All right. With that being said, we just appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable. You've spent a good hour with us just talking about code and semantic link labs. We hope this has inspired you to kind of explore a little bit more around what this is. For sure, go read Kurt's article. It is in the description of this video below. Go read it. Learn what he's doing. The code is simple. Don't worry. It's not too complicated. You can at least follow along with your own reports and things in your environment as well. So I think this is going to be a win for you. This is going to change how we build things in the future. This is going to be a fundamental tool that everyone will be using moving forward. And the best part is, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything to use it. There's no licensing. It's just go install the library, and it just works with inside Fabric, which is, again, the price is right if you're gonna go get wide adoption. So that being said, if you don't mind, if you like this episode, you thought this was valuable to you, please do us a favor, subscribe, hit the bell. That helps us get the video out, and then also let somebody else know that you enjoyed this video, and hopefully they'll jump in and listen as well. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find the podcast. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. If you have a question, an idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode, head over to Power BI Tips/podcast. Leave your name and your great question. Finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all of Power BI Tips social media channels.
This is how you know it's live, when there's a couple like flubs in the middle of things. we don't always get it right all the time, but sometimes we trip over our tongue. Excellent. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.